Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? How you doing? You got J and D here with the League Podcast.
You.
Tough loss for me. 2 weeks in a row now by Jay. 2 different leagues.
Just goes to show you who the boss is. 2 weeks in a row, 2 different leagues.
Last drive of the game.
Last drive of the game, I win the game. So, both of them I thought Dylan had in the bag. Luckily, 2 weeks in a row, I get
1 point last
I get the
week.
1 point win in both.
0.8 in this one.
Loving it. Tyler Lockett, you came through for me last night. Not only that touchdown, but that last reception on the last drive to get me that win.
Bullshit. All garbage time. Last week was garbage time as
Yep.
well. Like,
it's my favorite kind of time
you
right
gotta
there.
be kidding me. 2 weeks in a row now taken down by Jay. It
Well,
just kills me.
And after this huge trade, my guys, I got my best production out of the guys Dylan gave me was Devontae Adams, 20 points. 2 of the other guys put up less than 10, so thanks a lot for that.
Gurley probably had the same amount of points as all 3 of those players.
Yeah, Gurley put up 32.5 or something like that. So I was very disappointed in this week's outcome because of that reason that I gave him Todd Gurley, and Todd Gurley basically was going to win him this week.
Yeah, but
of course,
Demaryius Thomas lost me the week. Thank you, Demaryius.
Well, I don't know if he lost it. I wouldn't have started 2 Denver Broncos receivers to begin with. I'm glad
Against
he did
the
that.
Oakland Raiders, I would have. All
You
day.
did, and what happened?
Fuck me. Demaryius just couldn't catch anything,
He
dude.
couldn't. And what's weird is
11 targets.
Week 1, he looked like a different monster. Week 2 was a little different story.
Yeah,
But-
Sanders still looked good, but
Yeah.
he had very limited. He only had 4 targets. So
They were force feeding it to Demaryius. He couldn't do anything with
no,
it.
couldn't. He dropped a couple balls. It looked ugly. But before we get into anything, go ahead and follow us on our social media at The League Podcast for Instagram and Facebook, at The League Pod for Twitter. If you haven't already, go check out our website as well, which all these are on there at www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. Check out our website. It's got all of our social media on there, at The League Podcast again on Instagram and Facebook, and at The League Pod on Twitter. On Twitter, every Sunday, Jay kills it with advice on there, shooting it out. So if you guys have any advice on Twitter, send it over to us, or Instagram or Facebook. I mean, we're on all social media at all times. So.
That's right. Anywhere. We want to give you guys the answers. Obviously, you'll come to me because I'm the winner here, but I'm just kidding you. I had a great week, though. It was highs, lows, all that. Huge matchups all the way around. We definitely had some injuries over the weekend. LaShawn McCoy went down, cracked ribs. Who knows how long he'll be out.
He says he's going to play, but playing injured, I ain't about that life.
Behind a line who does nothing for you.
Yeah, no.
That's going to be a rough one. Who else is injured? Who else got injured this week?
Cam Robinson out
Out
for
for
the
a
year,
year.
which kind of sucks for that offensive line, but they've got some solid guys on there. I think that will keep it up and running.
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe they might move a guard or something to tackle just to make sure that it's not some nobody out there. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. Leonard Fournette didn't play on Sunday, so we'll see what his status is going into week 3. Hopefully he can play. If not, once again, TJ Yeldon probably can start him, right?
Yep, dismal week this week. Less than 10 points for him. Everyone expected a nice, at least 10 or above out of the guy, but definitely think you can start him again. Interesting stat, though. Blake Bortles is 4-0 when Leonard Fournette doesn't play.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of weird.
Well-
it is a little interesting, but maybe the game plan switches around, and
Well,
they don't lean too much
Bortles
on the run game.
Balled out. Fitzpatrick balled out. I mean, these guys were nobodies. Blake Bortles is someone that is so mediocre when it comes to the passing game, but
Well, both guys basically undrafted.
Yeah.
Undrafted in fantasy leagues. across
I
the
did
board.
see Blake Bortles drafted in some leagues, but he was dropped after week 1.
Mhm.
Balled out, but I don't want to talk about dropping a quarterback and then balling out, a.k.a. Matt Ryan. You screwed me again. 2 weeks in a row now. Thanks, bud. Dropped him, didn't start him, played Alex Smith, and lost me the week. There was a lot of things that lost me the week, obviously. Stupidity is what lost me the week.
But let's talk about what could win you the week, and we're talking weekly waiver wire ads today. All right, so these guys, beginning of the year, say you're 1-1 like you are. This is a great opportunity for you to grab somebody that could really change the rest of your season. And that's what's the beauty about possibly losing within the first 3-4 weeks of the season. You have the ability to pick up these guys that can be game changers and be incremental to your advantage in next week's matchup. So let's get into some waiver wire ads. Dill, why don't you lead us off with someone you think is a must add going into week 3?
Well, with this whole Devontae Freeman injury, you're not really sure what's going to happen with him. Obviously, Tevin Coleman is a starting running back there now, but they like to run a 2 running back system. So Ito Smith, Atlanta's 4th round pick this year, he had a decent showing playing that Tevin Coleman role, as Tevin Coleman is now slid into that Devontae Freeman
That
role.
3 down back.
And if Devontae Freeman, they said 2 to 4 weeks at first, but now he's saying he's not even sure when he's going to be back. So that's concerning to me. I think Ito Smith is a must add, not only just in case Tevin Coleman goes down, but he's still going to get the rock. He touched the ball 10 times last week for 54 yards. That's not bad for your first week coming in, first game ever playing, or I shouldn't say first game ever playing, but getting good amount of work. So I do think Ito Smith is worth an add, especially if you need a running back and you have that extra bench spot. He's definitely going to be on my waiver. He's not going to be the first guy on my waiver, but if you're down at the bottom, might as well stash a guy like this. Your team's pretty good and you have decent starters, so why not take a flyer on someone like this that can pay dividends, not only to play maybe later in the year if an injury occurs, but to even maybe trade if you need to, if he ends up blowing up.
Well, that was my next question would be, is this someone you're handcuffing for Tevin Coleman?
If I have Tevin Coleman, sure, why not? Like I said, if you have a bench spot, this guy, I'm not saying next week's going to come out and score 30 points for you. I'm just saying that he's definitely someone to keep an eye on and put on your roster because he could blow up. That offense is built around running the ball with passing the ball. Obviously, they'd like to balance it out, but that pass opens up the run opens up the pass. Those running backs in Atlanta are productive, so I'm taking this guy if I have an opportunity to. And I have an extra bench spot, I should say.
Definitely.
So, Jay, what about you? What are you going with your one of your waiver wire ads this week?
Yeah, well, hopefully. So,
yeah.
Being a Jay Ajayi owner now, obviously we had a scary injury over the weekend, and we saw Corey Clement flourish, just like we knew we would if anything happened to Jay Ajayi. Corey Clement's a beast. I drafted him in one of my leagues. I've already dropped him, though, because Ajayi is obviously with healthy and whatnot. But Corey Clement, with that injury, stepped into a very productive role this weekend, and I think he can continue to do so if anything happens to anybody else in that backfield. Darren Sproles didn't play. Jay Ajayi is now hurt. Corey Clement could turn out to be the guy if, stuff doesn't go well for them. So, Corey Clement, when he came in, he only had 6 carries, but he turned 6 carries into 30 yards and a touchdown. So that's definitely production, as well as that receiving. He's a receiving back. He caught 5 balls for 55 yards. He had a great day. So I don't think by any means they're discounting that offense by having Corey Clement in it. But obviously, as an Ajayi owner, I definitely want to see Ajayi in there. But Corey Clement, just like to your point, if anything happens, like you had Ito Smith for Tevin Coleman, Corey Clement's definitely an add in my book. If you have that roster spot, throw him on your bench. It's going to be pretty hard for me to throw him on my bench because we don't have enough damn bench spots. I have guys that I love on my bench, so it's going to be tough. But if you can get him, I definitely recommend getting Corey Clement because we know running backs are so hard to come by. If you can grab him, grab him. There's obviously plenty of receivers out there. So I would go with Corey Clement with my first waiver wire, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I mean, and he looked really, really good out there. Even every single time he gets in, he looks good. It's amazing to me that they don't give him a bigger role, and I'm hoping from this point forward they do. But Darren Sproles was hurt. That's why he got this role. So
definitely.
If Darren Sproles isn't hurt, do you think that he still gets touches?
It's going to be, when Darren Sproles comes back, it's going to be a lot less of him, right? And especially if Jay Ajayi is involved as well. But I think it's just about having such an injury-prone backfield. Something's bound to happen to one of them, and then Corey Clement steps up.
And it's just like the Atlanta backfield. They play the running backs. The running backs are productive in those offenses because they have great offensive lines.
And coming into this week, Carson Wentz is starting.
Yeah.
They're not going to rely on they don't want to have to put too much weight on Carson Wentz coming off a crazy injury where he's out the rest of the year. They're going to be relying on those running backs more than ever before due to them wanting to just keep Carson Wentz standing up. So
no, definitely. And, I mean, it might not be a thing, but Carson Wentz in Yahoo leagues is only owned by 92% of owners. So there's 8% of leagues out there, very few. But if for some reason someone dropped Carson Wentz, go pick him up. I mean, he is the number one priority on this waiver wire if he's in your league. Obviously, he's owned in majority of leagues, but if he's out there, go get him.
And you're starting him this week,
Oh,
right?
well, yeah, you bet.
He's a must
He's
start.
been on my bench in a couple leagues waiting. I've been sacrificing, and I am so happy now that I could drop my second quarterback. If something happens to Carson Wentz, it sucks, but I'll just be able to grab someone from the waiver again. But, yeah, man. So
let me dish it back to you. Do you have another running back you'd like to talk about? Since I believe running backs are hard to come by, especially on the waiver wire if you can land somebody.
definitely, I think there's a duo of running backs on the same offense that I think you need to look into. Obviously, the first one being Gio Bernard. He was the top drop player after week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Mixon dominated that backfield. Like you said, he lost that weight during offseason, and you could tell. He's
had that burst.
Yeah, he's got that burst, and he looks like a different player. Once again, Jake was high on him. I wasn't. Proved me wrong, just like Patrick Mahomes.
Always.
I give him credit for that.
Not always, actually.
Who knows how long Mixon's going to be out?
Hey,
Once again,
thank you.
Of course. Once again, I'm not sure how long Mixon's going to be out, but Gio Bernard obviously can play. When he gets the rock, he balls. He's just a little guy. He is very injury prone, so I want to talk about another guy on that offense as well. 4th round pick, Mark Walton.
Wow.
He is not owned in any league whatsoever. He's
Zero.
been inactive for the first 2 games, healthy scratches, because he does not play special teams. So that being said, they expect him to be activated this week. I don't know how involved he'll be in, but he is listed ahead of that other running back in the offense, which I can't think of his name right now, but he is listed as a 3rd running back in the offense. So behind Gio, he is that guy. So Gio, I think, will play, but Mark Walton, he's more of that pounding back that they can give the rock to when they need those short yardage things or even a touchdown. He might be one of those running backs like Ito Smith last week with 9 rushes for 46 yards, but he might sneak in a touchdown in that because, Gio Bernard, I'm not saying he can't go up the middle and run hard, but they're trying to reserve their running backs now. They're not going to want Gio to get hurt as well.
Definitely.
So I definitely think that Mark Walton is another guy like Ito Smith that, Ito Smith's 2% owned, Mark Walton's 0% owned. So these guys are flyers. I'm saying if you got an extra spot on your bench, might as well use it on a guy like this that has high upside in an offense that likes to run the ball. So my second guy is obviously Gio Bernard, but Mark Walton is also a guy to look out for on that waiver wire.
Wow. Dylan hitting him with some deep dives right here.
Yeah, man. Right. In my opinion, after 2 weeks, I'm kind of disappointed in the waiver. I feel like the last few years, the first few weeks of the year have been amazing waiver wire ads. Granted, last week you had Philip Lindsay, who is still consistently doing something, and they're going to keep riding the hot hand with him. But yeah, man, I'm a little disappointed in the waiver this year.
Well, we still have another week or 2 at least to see somebody pop up that's going to flourish. But I think this guy that I want to talk about next, he's definitely popped up, and now he's going to have a predominant role for the rest of this year unless they sign somebody. But that's Mr. Antonio Callaway with the Cleveland Browns. He was obviously a Hard Knocks standout. He was a big part of Hard Knocks. So I think everyone grew to love him there. But now they don't have Josh Gordon. Antonio Callaway is now the 2nd receiver in that offense, and that's not going to change unless they sign a Des Bryant or something crazy happens, which I don't see happening. I think they're going to rock Jarvis Landry, have Antonio Callaway on the outside as well, and he's going to produce. Yeah. He last week had 3 catches for 81 yards and a score. Tyrod's definitely looking his way. I already know if Baker Mayfield comes in, they already have that Team 2 rep chemistry. They're going to love each other. And Antonio Callaway, rookie, obviously, coming into this season, he was one of the top wideouts in this draft class. He dropped in the draft due to some off-the-field issues that popped up. So with that being said, I think Antonio Callaway could end this year as one of the best rookie wideouts of the season. And that's because of his position and where he's at with that offense. So I think this guy on a bunch of waiver wires, he's only 7% owned. So this guy's going to be someone you have to go get because he's a wide receiver too in an offense that's always going to be playing from behind and always going to be throwing the ball. So I think this is a must grab this week. Someone that probably isn't going to, with injuries, if someone were to be injured in front of him, that guy's going to come back, and then now you just, lost that waiver wire addition because he's not going to play. Antonio Callaway is not going to worry about that. He has no one in front of him besides the Jarvis Landry, who is injury prone as well, and Antonio Callaway has nothing but more upside when you look at this offense down the road. So go out and get him, I think today. Get him today and have him wake up on your roster with him tomorrow. So, and still, I mean, he's playing tons of percentage of snaps, right? He played 81% of the snaps in week 2. He's getting tons of opportunity in that offense. And like I said, if anything happens to Jarvis, he's running 100% in that offense of snaps played. So this is a guy must add, only 7% owned. Go get him. Go get him.
Would you rather start him, or would you rather pick him or DJ Moore?
Like waiver wire wise?
If they were on the waiver wire. I know you own DJ Moore. That's why I asked.
It's tough because DJ Moore looks like he's going to start getting more involved in that offense. Ron Rivera came out saying that he needs to get more work in that offense. He looks good. I'm at a tough position. I guess I'm going to be a little biased because I have DJ Moore and Cam Newton. But obviously Callaway's stats are much better. But you know, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think they're both in the same boat. They're both wide receiver 2s, arguably, in that offense. I think DJ Moore has a little bit higher of an upside in the long term, but I think Callaway probably ends as a better fantasy receiver this year. But I'm keeping DJ Moore on my roster just because of his upside.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Speaking of receivers, I mean, I want to dish back to you, Dill. Do you have a certain receiver this week that you talked about a few running backs now? What receiver are you recommending if you're stacked at running back and you need that wideout, you had an injury or whatever happened? Who are you going after this week?
Well, Mr. Deshaun Jackson, which to me, it's crazy. He's available on 50% of Yahoo leagues.
Wow.
So
chances are he's out there.
Yeah. I mean, 1 out of 2 leagues, it's looking like he's out there. I mean, it's not like he's getting tons of looks, but he's making complete opportunities. He's been thrown to 9 times this year, and he's caught all 9 balls. So,
wow.
First game, 5 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. The second game, 4 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown. So, he is balling out. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has that touch for the deep ball. I mean, they play to each other's strengths. They are on the same page. Like, their chemistry together is unbelievable. I just cannot believe the way that offense is moving and grooving. Because not only Deshaun Jackson, but also Chris Godwin. 35% owned in Yahoo leagues. He scored 2 weeks in a row as well. I don't know if that's going to continue, but at this time, I had Chris Godwin, been really high on him. His upside, I think, is really high. But I think I'd rather have Deshaun Jackson on my roster than Chris Godwin because I think Chris Godwin is more dependent on a touchdown to get those bigger stats because, you know, these first couple games, he had 41 yards receiving the first game and 56 the second game. So his stats wouldn't have blown you out of the water if he didn't score any touchdowns. With Deshaun Jackson, on the other hand, without those touchdowns, he's still a wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, Deshaun Jackson is definitely the number 1 receiver to add this week on the waiver wire if you need one. And I do. I just traded you Odell Beckham and Devontae Adams. So, in my opinion, I need a receiver. He is definitely one of my top guys to get this week. But speaking of receivers, there's a receiver that I also am really high on that I know that you want to talk about today, right?
I don't know who you're thinking about. But I'd imagine it's the next guy on my list.
Yeah.
So this guy we both have been high on in off season, in preseason. This is somebody that I can't believe is even out there. Mr. John Brown, Baltimore Ravens getting major production. He is seeing major target share. He's leading the league in targets, and this guy's only 26% owned in Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. That's unbelievable to me. This guy is obviously, because of his injuries in the past, people are scared of him. He's getting so much production, and Joe Flacco is looking his way so often. Like I said, he's leading the team in targets next to Michael Crabtree. They're both tied. So he has in the last 2 weeks, he has 14 targets with 7 catches, only 50% catches, but he has 136 yards and 2 touchdowns to add to those stats. So on a weekly basis, this guy is a wide receiver 2. And I just don't understand, like I said, why he's out there. He's in a high-powered offense. They're always going to be airing it out. That's Joe Flacco's strength. I really just I think you have to get him. And like for me, I'm gonna drop Tyler Lockett, in my opinion, for John Brown if I can get him, and I'd be much happier starting a John Brown in my flex than a Tyler Lockett, due to how horrible that offensive line in Seattle looked last night. So John Brown, if he's out there on yours, like I said, he probably is. He's owned in 26% of leagues. So I go grab him. There's nothing to be scared of with this guy. He's getting the production, he's getting the looks, and he's getting red zone looks as well, which is crucial for a guy his size. So
And I mean, he looks like the old John Brown that we thought was going to be a star in this league. So with John Brown's potential, I think that, yeah, he's for sure could be a wide receiver 2, maybe even a wide receiver 1. I think he can. I said this in the beginning of the year that I think he can jump Michael Crabtree as that number 1 receiver in this offense, and I still believe it, especially after seeing what we've gotten out of him.
yeah, so if he's out there, go grab him. Wake up with him tomorrow on your lineup, and you will not be disappointed, guaranteed.
Someone I didn't talk about while I was talking about the Bucks was someone that is a top. I want to say top. He's either number 1 or number 2. I'm guessing he's number 2 quarterback right now. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Mr. Fitzmagic over here. I mean, is his name Ryan Fitzpatrick or is it Conor McGregor? I think everyone's getting a little confused with all these posts online and everything, but he's had to steal some of Deshaun Jackson's swag to pull that off. But he's only owned in 24% of leagues. He has 819 yards and 8 touchdowns with only 1 interception on the year.
Unbelievable.
And he gets to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just got shredded by Patrick Mahomes. So I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick, again, is a must-start this week on top of Deshaun Jackson and possibly even Chris Goodwin if you need someone in your flex. So that's definitely someone you should go pick up.
Dylan's high on the Bucks, and you would be too. I mean, look at their fantasy stats
offense
all
is
across the
killing
board, except running backs. They're
mediocre.
Their
less mediocre.
Pass offense is absolutely unbelievable, and obviously defenses are having a hard time dealing with that. So I love it, especially if you're in a position where you have a Carson Wentz. Why not get a Ryan Fitzpatrick just in case, you know, and maybe even start Ryan again this week and have Carson sit on your bench this week just to see and get through one more week, make sure Carson's solid and whatnot. But I love it. I'm going to go with another quarterback, Dill, since we're on the same page.
Hit me with it.
I'm going with another guy who's blowing off the charts, who is not being talked about at all. This is Blake Bortles. All right, Blake Bortles just went ahead and shredded the Patriots defense and took a win, got that back, which they lost last year. I called it last podcast. I said that they were going to come in and win this game, revenge game, and get her done. Blake Bortles is owned in less than 30% of leagues, and he needs to be on your roster. He, for last week, against the Patriots, threw for 377 passing yards. He had 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. He beat the Patriots 31-20. And, you know, he handed Tom Brady his first career loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars in last week's game.
Wow.
So, and like I mentioned before, without Leonard Fournette, he's 4-0. I just think because of that, he was forced to throw the ball and air it out, and we saw what could happen with that offense. He made it happen. 4 touchdowns in that offense, almost 400 passing yards. The guy went off. So I don't know if that just is because Patriots defense is not that good, but I definitely think he 2 weeks in a row has put up decent stats, has 5 touchdowns on the year. I'm interested in him. I'm intrigued, and I like what that offense is doing. And just because their defense is so good, it gives Blake Bortles so much more opportunity in playing time on the field to get work done. But we know Blake; he's also inconsistent. We're gonna have games where he throws 2 to 3 interceptions, but why not have him on your bench in case anything happens? And if you got someone that's injured or not producing for you, I'd rock Blake Bortles all the way. They're playing a Tennessee Titans team next week who doesn't look scary on defense by any means. So that's where I'm at. I definitely like Blake, and if he's out there, like I said, less than 30% owned, go grab that, man.
Amen to that, brother. I mean, the Jaguars receiving core is not nothing to brag about, but they've got a lot of solid pieces on that offense.
Depth, enough guys to make plays.
Keelan Cole looking like Odell 2.0.
Come on, and then D.D. Westbrook. He had a not very good game. He had that huge play which set him over the top.
But he's got big playability like that.
Got that 64-yard touchdown on 4 receptions. I mean, he
makes Blake Bortles' job easy. He just dunks it to him and he does the rest. And that's what these receivers in this offense can do. DJ Shark, one of the fastest receivers in the draft this year. I mean, they've got these quick, fast guys on this offense that he takes advantage of.
It's going to be a lot easier to get fantasy points when you just have to throw a 5-yard pass that takes 60, 70 yards to the house. So Blake's definitely got the potential to be, in my opinion, he's going to end as a top 15 quarterback, potential to end as a top 10 quarterback this year.
Wow. So are you taking him or Matt Ryan?
I think, that's a tough question. And they're both guys that I think are in the same boat. Inconsistent. You're going to see 30-point weeks and then 10, 15-point weeks on a weekly basis. I think due to...
All right, I'm going to give you some right now. Blake Bortles, Alex Smith, and Matt Ryan. Trade, cut, start.
All right, so trade, cut, start.
I should maybe say
We have...
sit, cut, and start.
All right.
Instead of trade. You're not going to get much out of it.
We have Matt Ryan. We have...
Alex Smith.
And
we have Blake Bortles.
So, who I'm sitting this week is Alex Smith. Coming off a 10-point game, 11-point game. I am worried. They did add some more receivers to this offense.
Which makes me even more worried.
They needed the help, and now these are guys that don't know this offense nearly as well as anybody else. They play Green Bay Packers this week, who I think their defense looks solid as can be. I'm definitely sitting Alex Smith this week against the Packers, who I'm cutting. I'm cutting Matt Ryan, just like I have in many, many leagues. And I know people are going to freak out because he had a huge 30-point game. But no, we're coming off a game where Julio Jones only had 11 games. Matt Ryan went crazy on his own. I don't even know how or where or when, but he made it happen. But this is somebody that I don't think is going to be consistent.
He had 2 rushing touchdowns.
2 rushing touchdowns, which set him over the top, obviously. They have horrible red zone production. He obviously had to throw his body into the end zone to get anything done. They play a New Orleans defense next week, who I think is going to start stepping up and really turn it around against the Atlanta Falcons. So that leaves me to start Mr. Blake Bortles, all right? Like that. That's the guy I'm getting on my waiver wire this week. If I needed a quarterback, which I don't, I'm looking pretty solid, except I do have Alex Smith in one of them, so I might just have to go out there and get Mr. Blake Bortles. So that's where I'm at. Blake Bortles, if he's out there, grab him, and that's my sit, cut, and start.
Awesome, man. So I'm going to go with my last guy of the day, and then we'll shoot it over to you. My last guy of the day is someone that he's not the number one guy in this offense, and I don't think he's ever going to be the number one guy in this offense, but they do like to throw it to their running backs, and that's the Baltimore Ravens, Mr. Javorius Allen. He looked terrible running the ball, 6 rushes for 8 yards, but he did steal that goal line carry, which the announcer went to proceed to say that he is now their goal line back because of the worries of Alex Smith fumbling it.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, Alex Collins
you bet.
fumbling it. So it does make me nervous if I am a Collins owner, but Collins looked 10 times better running the ball than Allen did, but Allen does his damage with the pass catching. With Kenneth Dixon out, we know that Javorius Allen is that third down back, is that pass catching back. The first game of the year, it looked like the Ravens were just going to dominate this year, but that second game, they took a couple steps back. They had to throw the ball. So I think it's going to be up and down weeks. I think some weeks Javorius Allen's going to have good games, and some weeks he's just going to give you nothing. Just like Jalen Richard did. First week, killed it with all those receptions, and the second week, 0 points.
I was going to say, I think it's really based on their receiving production. As much as he can be the goal line back, he is touchdown dependent as well, but you see the games where he blows up is the game where he has 6 to 10 receptions.
Definitely.
You know, so with 60 yards on catches. So I love it though.
He's definitely just another guy, 8% owned. So I mean, if you need a running back, which a lot of people do, I do. I've got 3 running backs on my roster right now, and that third running back is Chris Carson, who at the end of the game yesterday didn't see him once, and Pete Carroll went on to proceed to say that he was quote unquote gassed from playing special teams as well. Then take his ass off special teams because he looks better than Rashad Penny. He averaged 6 yards a carry last night.
He did.
So I mean, what the heck, man? What the heck? I love Chris Carson. I've got him on pretty much every single team. Ugh,
must be aggravating. But it has to do a lot with that. I guess offensive line too. They can't run the ball because every time they run the ball, it sets them down to third down already. They're stuck to pass the ball. Russell Wilson's getting sacked or trying to make a play. That offense looks scary, man.
It does. It does not look good. But granted, they've played a couple good defenses in the first 2 weeks, so we'll see how they do this week.
I mean, those poor offensive linemen. Von Miller, week 1, and then Khalil Mack, week 2.
I know.
I mean, come on. Those offensive linemen are getting their asses kicked, and it's not going to get any easier for them. So
I know. It's brutal to watch, and I was really excited with the beginning of the game yesterday, but as soon as he came out and I didn't see him again, once they started putting in their third string running back, Mike Davis, that's when I really got worried, and I thought he was hurt. So I think he is hurt. But they're just not saying anything. They're going to keep it on the low until they figure out exactly what's wrong with him. I'm praying that everything's okay, and next week he can continue to play because he does look better than Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny did have a couple decent runs yesterday, but he's still just – I feel like Chris Carson is just better fitted for that offense. But anyways, let's move on to the last waiver wire of the day, which once again – this guy, I'm very shocked to see him on some waiver wires.
Definitely.
I have a few leagues that he is on, and I started him in a couple leagues last week, and he paid dividends. So Jay,
Without a doubt.
give it to us.
Jets.
Jets, Jets.
So, Mr. Sam Darnold, I think, has picked a favorite target in this offense, and that being Quincy Enunwa. Quincy Enunwa coming off a season where he had surgery, injury, and was totally on the back burner. So I think everybody is kind of looking at him on the back burner this year, but he's producing. This man has 21 targets and 13 receptions in 2 weeks. Has 155 yards. Only one touchdown, but it's clear that he is being looked at and targeted the most in this offense. So, with that being said, I think you have to go get him if he's even out there. Like we said, there's 61%. He's already 61% owned in most leagues, but that obviously leaves a big chance for him to be out there. And we're looking at a wide receiver 2 in your lineup every single week. He plays the Cleveland Browns, who are getting beat up for the most part. Definitely look good, but he does have a couple hard matchups in the future. Jacksonville he plays, Denver he plays, but at the same time, with that production, I think this is someone who can flourish in that offense with a young quarterback who's just going to be having to air it out because they're probably going to be playing from behind like they have been and just trying to get touchdowns, get scores, get Darnold the ball in the air. I'm going Quincy Enunwa this week as my last guy on the board, but this is one of the guys that's probably owned, but if you can get him, grab him. The other guys we talked about are a lot less owned and probably more, you could probably get a better chance of getting them.
But Quincy Enunwa, I like the guy a lot. I hope to get him. Him and Deshaun Jackson are 1A, 1B for this week. And then, we got John Brown as a 1C. So if I end up with any of those 3 running or receivers this week, I am stoked. One guy I want to just, I know we said last guy, but there's one more guy I want to talk about really quick.
Preach.
It is Mr. Tyler Boyd in that Cincinnati Bengals offense.
Definitely flourished.
I mean, he had a week 1 that was just mediocre, 3 receptions for 26 yards. But that's week 2, he blew up 6 receptions on 91 yards on 9 targets and 1 touchdown. He is that number 2 receiver in the offense. Everyone keeps talking about John Ross, but he looks way ahead of John Ross on that depth chart. He plays a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
John Ross definitely has that big playability, but Tyler Boyd is a good possession receiver. Andy Dalton is looking pretty good, and he loves to trust his possession receivers. AJ Green is one of the best. He is probably the best possession receiver in the NFL. So definitely across from AJ Green, Tyler Boyd's going to get a lot of one-on-one coverages, and I think he can beat a lot of them, especially on these weaker teams. And yeah, I mean, he's only 2% owned. He is someone to keep an eye on. If he has another productive week this week, he is going to be a top guy to add
next week. He could be one of the top wire waiver ads that we're talking about. So, Dill, after all this, why don't you let them know where we can be found?
www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You heard it right. www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. And on there, you'll find all of our social media at The League Podcast for Facebook and Instagram, and at The League Pod for Twitter. So go check us out. Go get some great information to win week 3. I need it, obviously, losing a lot of my matchups this week, so I'm going to listen to this podcast over again and go based off of my off Jay and my advice. And
Definitely.
You should as well.
And being, I'm in 3rd place in most of my leagues. I'm in the top 3. So I'm going after these guys that are less owned that can possibly win me the week or longevity-wise win us the season. Yeah. So go get these guys. There's
plenty of guys that we gave you today. That if you're in a 12-team league, this should cover your 12 teams. So you should at least get one of these guys, and you'll be thanking us next week. So guys, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you guys Thursday.
That's right.
For the Thursday night matchup with the Browns and the Jets, which will be interesting.
That's right, and we'll get into the rest of the week 3 matchups. Can't wait.
Definitely.
Over and out.
Take care.
What did I do? What did I do? The league, huh?